Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for March 6th, 2017. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. We've had a reversal back toward 2369, 2368.75. That's the current low of the overnight session here. When we had this spike top here into 2400, we were looking for a pullback back toward the mid, and if price was not able to hold the mid, at 2382, that was indicative of a likely continuation back toward 2370 to 72. That was our goal here heading into Friday's market, and we got just shy of that area, hit it today, and this is a zone here where bulls want to come in and defend and already have defended at that area. So you can see right here, this is when we had the very narrow range that it formed. 2370 was where the stops started to get run through that area and into the highs of 2401. And so now coming back to that area, this is a natural zone where bulls want to defend for a retest of highs at 2401. So right now, here's the previous week's close. Prices are below it at the moment. Hit 2370, and at this point, bulls are trying to keep 2370 bid for a shot at retesting 2400 early in the week. Any failure to hold 2370 would suggest a continuation to the downside, perhaps into 2350 or below. But right now, again, we've been in a very, very bullish market. All pullbacks have been buying opportunities. It's very difficult to sell in this market right now for any period of time before it turns around and heads higher. So you have to be very, very careful if you're looking to counter trend. Fade this right now. All flows to the upside. Pullbacks look to be defended for a likely squeeze above the previous week's close and into the previous week's high. So if we're taking a look here at the intraday time frame, you'll see what that rejection looks like here in overnight trading. So here's the 2370 level. Price came just in front of it, bounced a little bit. Bears came in and defended the previous session's low, and from there made an attempt to push through 2370, pushed into 68.75 and rejected back above 2370, and is now taking VWAP bid and is holding. So right now, that appears to be a very strong rejection of 2370, and that would be indicative right now of buying pullbacks for a likely test back at 2380 and 2383 by the end of the day, and perhaps that could spark a continuation toward the previous week's high. So we'll see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. All right, let's take a look at crude oil. Here's crude at the moment. Crude continues to hold right at the center of the range. Again, this range has gone on for quite a while and can continue to go sideways for a while. We're here at 53.40. That's a key level, and that's kind of been a partition between the upper and lower portions of this range. For example, they held it as support here. It was kind of resistance here, support there, resistance here, resistance, resistance, support. And so right now, it's a bit of resistance. And that was an area that went offered the previous week. So right here, I mentioned that price had been trading too much in the upper distribution, and we could be looking at a move to the lower distribution, perhaps as low as 51.70. And then we saw the stops come out Thursday. On Friday, they held 53.40 as resistance, and right now, it continues to hold as resistance with minor higher lows rather. So a push above 53.40 would open the door back to a retest into the upper area of the range and into the previous week's high. Any failure to get above 53.40 extends the current down move into the lower end of the range here, 51.71. Given that the first part of our idea worked last week here and continues to hold, the expectation is that bears are going to continue to keep 53.40 offered for a shot lower. Above 53.40 will squeeze. So if you take that into the lower time frame here it is. If you take that into the lower time frame and really crunch this up a little bit, you'll see 53.40 is right there. And this is where bears took it offered. And now all attempts into that area are going to be defended by bears. We have a little bit of a rounded bottom here. So that tells you that this is a very, very important level. If bears are not able to establish control or remain in control of this level, you will see a significant squeeze back up toward 54.50 and beyond. So that's the pivot to watch today. And we'll see who controls that pivot by the end of the week. So continue to watch it. Any push into it, bears want to defend primarily. If there's a squeeze, look to defend the pullback for a continuation back up. All right, let's take a look at gold. Here's a higher time frame for gold here. One thing that stands out about gold is that 2 of the last 3 sessions we've seen significant rejection tails. We had one here, and then price pushed through the midpoint, 1145, and could not hold it, and it dropped downward. Now we had another one on Friday here, and here's the midpoint again that bulls want to defend. However, look at this here. We're seeing a rejection already of the previous session's high right away, and now price is coming into the midpoint of the rejection tail. Typically speaking, that's not what you like to see if you want to defend this as a bull. What I mentioned Friday to our traders was that the fact that price failed to hold 1145 was an indication that we were likely headed lower, perhaps into 1220 to 1221 again. We have just rejected, obviously, these recent highs. We've come across the range. Here's recent lows at 17.5. These could still be the lows that the market's looking for before we start to push back up across the range. So there could still be more weakness ahead, despite the fact that we have a nice rejection tail here. That midpoint is going to be very, very important right there. So watch that midpoint, 1229, basically 1230. If bears fail to hold, push through that level and it fails to hold, look for a push down into this zone, and that's the area to look for another rejection and perhaps a push up. So we'll keep an eye on this one here. If we take a look at the intraday time frame, there it is. On an intraday basis, again, using our current idea that this zone right here, 1230, very important. You can see how price had traded below it and a squeeze above it, and now there's a little bit of an LV in there. So bulls want to keep this area bid right now. 1230 for a push higher. Failure to hold it will start to rotate this thing back down. All right, let's take a look here at our next contract. We're going to take a look at ZB. So on a higher time frame here, what I mentioned before was that we weren't quite seeing rejection just yet near the lower edge of this range, but to continue to be patient because we could see rejection at some point. So price did drop into that area. It dropped below our zone a little bit into these lows here. And then finally Friday, we had a little bit of a recovery. You had the rejection of the previous session's low, and then price closed back above 149.12. So that was the first indication here that we're starting to see a sense of rejection of these lows. Primarily or ideally, you'd like to see bulls keep the midpoint of that area bid. That's going to be 149.03. And so if bulls want to keep this thing headed higher, the safe area here is to keep that bid. If there's any failure, you're going to have to look for another rejection here. One thing that keeps me a little bit concerned is that we just pushed into the pivot range for the week, likely a down lower value relationship. It's also rejected at that area so far, rejected prices above 149.24. So it tells us right now it's not ready to rock and roll back up just yet as these prices are being rejected. So we could see a little bit of weakness here, and then bulls need to keep it bid for a shot at eventually moving this thing back up. So right now we're starting to see initial signs of rejection. If we drop to the lower time frame here, you can kind of see what's going on with regards to bulls and where they're stationed here. So on these lows, again, you can see right here, very firm lows, 148.24 down to 148.22. Very, very clear support there. And recently, here's 149.12. Recent highs, look how price pushed through that area and is now making it support. So that's a zone, 149.12, that bulls want to keep bid short term for a shot at squeezing here the rest of the session, perhaps into 150.20, maybe even higher. So we'll see if they can keep them bid here for a continuation up. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out heading into the rest of the week. Good luck, trade well, and happy Monday.